Just want to get, Chris, a reaction from you, because overnight, while people have been sleeping, Dame Alison Rose, head of NatWest, has resigned over the Nigel Farage scandal. Anything to say on that?
Well, I think she was right to resign, because clearly client confidentiality is very, very important for any bank, and it sounds like inaccurate information was provided to the BBC. But of course this all stems from the fact that Nigel Farage had his bank account closed down in the first place based on his political views, and the government are very clear that people should not have critical banking services withdrawn because of their political point of view. And the City Minister, Andrew Griffiths, I think is meeting a number of banks today to forcefully reiterate that point. In this country, we believe in free speech, we believe in political freedom, and that means that people should be able to have their banking services provided regardless of their political views. But yeah, to answer your question directly, yes, she was right to resign.
I mean, Mr. Philp, something needs to be done now, doesn't it? I mean, we were speaking to Nigel 50 minutes ago, and he explained there are now 10 banks who have refused him to bank with them. That is an astonishing situation, that he cannot actually be served by the UK banking industry. And as he said, he's got the name, he's got the voice, he's able to blow the whistle on this, but there will be many people who have been debanked. Something needs to change.
I think it does. So I think it's unacceptable that Mr. Farage has been refused banking facilities by 10 different banks. As I said, we believe in free speech and we believe in political freedom. And that means people, regardless of their political views, should be able to access banking services, including Mr. Farage. Of course, there's a whole load of rules about money laundering which are separate. We don't want to offer banking services to people who have, stolen money or have purloined it in other countries. That's a different issue. This is about political freedom, and that's why the City Minister is meeting banks today to forcefully reiterate the point. By the way, many MPs, it's not just Mr. Farage, many MPs actually, and their families can find it difficult to get banking and financial services because banks have been overzealously interpreting these so-called PEP rules, politically exposed persons, which is designed to prevent, originally politicians from foreign countries that may have obtained their money dishonestly from getting banking services in the UK, but they're overzealously applying it to MPs. If you talk to almost any MP, they'll have a story about how either themselves or their spouse or their children or something have had issues with financial services. So it's quite a widespread issue, and that's why, as I say, the City Minister is raising it forcefully with banks today.
Thank you for that, Chris. In your policing role, you're working on a new agreement which will free up, you hope, a lot of police time, which is obviously very, very valuable. How are you going to do this?
Well, police spend a lot of their time attending mental health incidents where there is no threat to safety, either the individual or the general public safety, and where there is no criminality. And in those cases, the appropriate response, obviously, is a health response, because the person suffering a mental health crisis needs medical assistance. And so I came across some work that was done in Humberside over the last 2 or 3 years called Right Care, Right Person, where the Humberside police got together with the local NHS and made sure that local NHS in Humberside responded to all of these cases, which meant that the people having a mental health crisis got much better treatment because they need medical treatment, not a police officer, and it also saved the equivalent of about 17,000 hours a year of police time in Humberside. So I thought this seems to have worked very effectively. So I convened some meetings just before Christmas with the NHS, the Department of Health, National Policing, to see if we could essentially replicate this across the whole country. And today's announcement is the publication of a national partnership agreement between policing and the Home Office on the one side and the Department of Health and the NHS on the other, to essentially roll out this Humberside approach on a national basis. It'll mean that when someone's suffering a mental health crisis, there's no criminality and there's no threat to safety, they will get a medical response rather than a police response. That will help the individual concerned. We also estimate across the whole country it will save 1 million hours a year of police time that can be spent patrolling our streets, protecting the public and catching criminals, which I think is what the public expect to see police doing.
Yes, which I'm sure many people will support. Whilst we've got you, Mr. Philp, I did want to ask you about the situation situation in Rhodes and the Mediterranean. The government has now updated its travel advice for Rhodes, describing it as highly dangerous and unpredictable. Alicia Kearns, though, saying that they've acted 4 days too late. And as we speak, there is this ring of fire around the Mediterranean, with Sicily, Turkey, Algeria and Croatia now burning. Are we going to see rapid response teams being sent to those other countries in the Med? Will you act quicker in these set of circumstances than you did in Rhodes?
Yeah, well, look, I'm sure the FCDO will be monitoring those examples you mentioned in Turkey and Croatia and elsewhere and responding fast. There is, as you say, an FCDO, a Foreign and Commonwealth Office, rapid reaction team in Rhodes providing assistance to British citizens who are out there. And wherever that kind of response is required, I would expect it to be provided.
Chris, we've got so much to talk to you about, but we're out of time. And just whilst you were talking to us, all I could hear was exhausts from motorcycles. And in your position as a crime minister there, I want you to make that they should all be arrested and thrown in prison. That noise from motorbikes. I'm just saying, Chris, it's one of my pet irritations. But you go off and think of some legislation to have them all arrested. Thank you very much indeed. Appreciate it.
I'll give it some thought, but all right, thank you.
I'm sure you have a few things in your in tray which may be more important, but anyway.